everyone, my name is Diva. I'm a Libra, hence Diva the Libra. Welcome to my channel. Today we're going to talk about something that I feel like I've been talking about forever on this channel, but have been like, I'm going to do a video, I'm going to do a video. It's my pride and joy, my love of my life. Would I give up my firstborn child for it? Maybe not, but we're coming close, we're coming close. And that is my digital book journal. I started my digital book journal in November of 2022 after being inspired by a book content creator that I found on TikTok, and I just thought it was I'm putting this right here because I'm going to insert like their at. I just thought it was like the coolest thing ever, and it just found like a perfect way to record my books, to just look on them for like the past year and remember all the things I liked about them, and did all the things I didn't like about them. For anybody who doesn't know, I love books. I'm looking forward to doing like more bookish content on this channel just because I love to talk into the void about them, and to my best friend who also loves to talk about books, and I feel like I'm gonna share the wealth with other people too. I was always sitting in Barnes & Noble in the library just being like, Mom, can you just like drop me off there? And then she would pick me up at like the end of the Saturday and be like, hey, get back in the car. Which is now crazy to me to think, especially for Barnes & Noble, because I feel like I used to do that all the time when I was like in like later middle school. My mom would drop me off, she would like go into the mall because it was like a conjoining mall with where our Barnes & Noble was, and then she would like look around and do like the errands she needed to, and I also got to read. And hearing people say that like that's like no longer allowed, at least for me when I was younger, there was like sectioned off spaces that were like especially meant for like children, like parents, especially for parents of like very young kids could come and read to their children. There was like rocking chairs, like little beanbag chairs, and especially like teens and like young children could read there. So the fact that this doesn't exist now, of course there's libraries, but I think like also in consideration with the fact that like a lot of libraries like hours are closing and things like that, they're not as open as long as they used to in like a lot of states. It's making me very sad, which is all to say I love books, I love to talk about them, I love to chat about them, and I want to chat about them with more people. So I'm looking forward to talking about them on this channel, and especially my digital book journal. So just to get into a little bit about my path with it, I started using Adobe Express. The creator of which I was inspired by uses Procreate, but I didn't have an iPad at the time, and I was not as creative as what it looked like you needed Procreate to do. Like I was flabbergasted but what I saw people like do using Procreate to do, it was like looked like it was for like primarily artists. I was like, I'm not like that handheld creative, like drawing things like that. I was like, I need something a bit simpler. For anybody who has like a desktop, you can use it if you have an iPad too, but if you have like a desktop computer, a laptop, I think Adobe Express is like great for it. I'm going to insert a couple of like screenshots of the pages I made on it. I just thought it was another great way to start off like making a digital book journal, and I found it really fun. As I grew more and more comfortable as time progressed, I was like, I want to do something a bit more handheld. Also, my laptop is like old, and Adobe Express was making it run like a hot potato. It just really was not conducive to what I wanted to do, and so I wanted to treat myself. God, I need to cough. I had an iPad too from early high school, but is like on the fritz. I think primarily from the fact that like now it's kind of wild. I think that like K-dramas are just like on Netflix with like subtitles and everything, because when I was in high school I used to watch on like Drama Fever, which doesn't exist anymore, which is, I feel old, a bunch of websites that had like your iPhone has been like hacked into, or like piracy, like ads, things like that. So this is all to say I ended up getting myself a new iPad. Oh, you guys can see the reflection of the camera. Hey guys. Which was great because one, the camera on this iPad is great. We are going to get to the digital book journal very soon. It's all around just like very efficient, and so I ended up downloading like Procreate. It's been like definitely a process, but it's been very rewarding, and just like every time I finish a page, every time I finish like filling in a little like shelf on like my digital bookshelf, it just feels very like, and now that we're coming to the end of the year and I can look back on all the pages that I did before, I'm just very happy. And so I'm going to walk you guys basically through it. This is kind of an excuse to just like look back on all the books that I like, maybe the books that I didn't like, all that stuff. So let's get into it. To show like briefly before I get down to showing like the book journal, this is like my little desk setup, but this is a device I use to like put my phone in when I record me drawing, just to look back on it. So I just wanted to show that briefly. This is usually where I am. Hey girl, hey girl. This was the quote-unquote cover of my digital book journal. I had a lot of fun making this. I just really wanted it to stylistically be similar to like those do not enter journals or like diaries that you could buy from like school book fairs when we were like younger, and so I really wanted it to be like that. I had a lot of fun making this in Adobe Express. Like the older pages I showed you guys a couple of minutes ago, snapshots of when I was doing my book journal in Adobe Express, because I didn't want to leave any of my work there like when I transferred over to Procreate. Even though I did tweak and refine some pages once I was in Procreate, I downloaded them them all as PNGs or JPEGs and moved them over to Procreate. My cover was also one of them. That's why I'm saying, like, don't knock it Adobe Express at all if you are on a desktop or using it on your iPad. It has a lot of great properties and tools and like things you can use, especially like whether you're creatively inclined or like not, or like honestly if you just feel like you need a little bit more of a helping hand before you do anything that requires like drawing. I think it's a great thing to have. Just to walk you guys through a couple of the details on my cover page, in the lower left hand corner you can see me. That's from a selfie that I took a while ago wearing one of my favorite shirts. Say I may be wrong, but I highly doubt it. I thrifted it, I love it. In the middle you can see a little phone template that I took in Adobe Express and put a little Spotify screenshot of Run to You by Stacey, which was my favorite song at the time when I first made this cover. And then in the upper hand corner you can see the person on the Tower of Books is actually not me. It's a picture from Pinterest, but I thought from the back the person in the picture looked enough like me that, and they were holding a book, it just felt very on brand for what I was going for, and so I put them on the little stack of books. Basically the person is saying I put so many books, so little time. In the same vein of really wanting it to have a diary feel, I included like all of these little scribbles like romantic at heart, do not enter, BRB, drinking a matcha latte, which yeah, maybe in reflection there are some things about it I would change, but I just feel like it gives it a very like nostalgic, youthful feel, which was what I was going for, and so I am very happy with it and looking forward to setting up my journal for next year and really thinking about all the different covers I can make and the one I'm going to decide on. And last but not least, the stack of books in the corner that the person is standing on. This is actually the first element of the cover that I took from Adobe Express that I really liked, and then I crafted everything else around it. The stack is basically a stack of books that I've really enjoyed in the past. Actor A.J. Brown, Foolish Hearts, The Very Secret Society of Irregular Witches. I feel like I want to incorporate something like that into my cover for the new year, but we'll see. Let's get to the rest of the journal. Just saw me flipping through. These are the templates I use for my journal pages, my monthly bookshelves, and my Webtoon of the month. I haven't done Webtoon of the month lately because I haven't read a new Webtoon that has caught my eye every month. I've been reading a continued series, but those are my templates. The bookish content creator of which I was inspired by had templates that they were able to copy over when they made each new journal page, which I thought was a very smart idea because while stylistically every page that I do is different and I take a lot of like joy in that, this just makes the process a lot more seamless and like much easier for me. Watching their tutorials and adding some of my own flair and some of my own stylistic choices that I wanted to make, and also watching a lot of YouTube tutorials. I will say that if you're learning to navigate Procreate, like, YouTube is your best friend. The box in the upper left hand corner is where I put the cover of the book. The stars underneath are where I shade in the star rating of the book. I'm going to touch on this later, but I only make individual journal pages of the books at the time that I read them. They are a 3-star or higher. If not, I put them on my monthly bookshelf, or if I haven't DNF'd them and I finish them, I also put them on my larger digital bookshelf, but I'll get to that later. The little squares in the middle with tape are Polaroid frames where I put pictures that remind me of the book, details, things like that. Sometimes it'll be characters, scenery, it could be anything different depending on what is applicable to the book. 90% of the time I get my pictures from Pinterest, but in the event I feel like I really can't find anything that is like what I'm looking for, I look to other parts of the internet. The circle on the right hand side next to the by is where I put the author's name, and then the little 2 circles underneath with the from and the to is where I put the dates that I read it from. And the speech bubble in the bottom left is where I record my thoughts about the book. For no other reason really than I just wanted to create like a little bit of differences in between my journal pages. If you see a cover on the left hand side, that means that the journal page is for a manga or a graphic novel. As you'll see, if you see the cover on the right hand side, that means it's for a book that is not a graphic novel or a manga. There's really no reason for that other than I just felt like it. This is my monthly bookshelf. Above the line is where the name of the month will go. In the bottom right hand corner is where I'll choose 3 songs that I listen to a lot that month. It's like a mini monthly Spotify draft, so not only can I look back on the books that I read that month, but I can also look back on the songs I might have been obsessed with that month. Having a monthly bookshelf is nice because this is where I record all of the books that I read, no matter the rating, and also the books that I DNF. Like I said before, I only make journal pages, individual ones, for a 3-star or higher, and so if it's not a 3-star, if it's a 1 or 2-star, if I DNF it, this is where the cover on this page goes, and I put the rating accordingly. Also, this is nice to have because even on my larger digital bookshelf that you guys are going to see, I don't put my DNFs there, only the books that I finish. I very much fell off with my Webtoon of the month, like I have not been doing it recently, but when I first started my book journal last November, which feels so long ago, I was reading a new Webtoon like every month. I was finding a new one that caught my attention, hooked me, mystery, romance, thriller, like all of the above. And as such, this page would be dedicated to whichever Webtoon that month really had me interested or which one I was really looking forward to reading. Before creating each monthly bookshelf, I would create a month title card. I have a lot of fun with these. I style each one in accordance with what I feel like sticks out to me most about the month. And so January, New Year's, as you can see, I took the meme of the woman going into the new year and I made it bookish because it makes me laugh. This is an example of my monthly bookshelf. This is the one I did for January of this year. This is not necessarily applicable to all the 3-star books on this page, but in reflection, as I look back on my monthly bookshelves, on even the individual journal pages I did that were 3 stars, I am questioning myself a little bit. When it comes to books that are 4 or 5 stars or 1 or 2 stars, I feel like very assured when I give them those ratings, but I feel like when it comes to 3-star ratings, books that I may have enjoyed but felt like kind of middling about, I tend to give it that rating, and I feel like when I look back on them, however, I always think about more criticisms I had of them than things I liked, and know I probably should have dropped them lower. Example, Brutal Prince by Sophie Lark. I enjoyed that book for the most part when I read it, but like as now I'm reflecting on it, I have more criticism than things I'd like, so I probably like just dropped the star rating. Take Highly Suspicious and Unfairly Cute, for example. I thought it was a fun and quick read when I read it, but now at the end of the year, I'm reflecting on the sheer number of pop culture references that were in it, and I just feel like you'll come to learn that like I very strongly dislike pop culture references. I just feel like by virtue, I have to drop it at least like half a star. This is basically all to say is sometimes I change my mind, and if I have to go back to a journal page and change it from a 3-star to something lower, it's not the end of the world. Also, time is truly a concept, because to look to the playlist of the month box and remember that Kill Bill came out in the end of 2022 is truly like wild. This is my April bookshelf, just to show another example. That reading slump sticker was used a lot because I fell into a reading slump a lot this year, but I should update this bookshelf to show that I read multiple volumes of Skip and Loafer, not only the first one. When it comes to manga series that have been finished, I usually only put the cover of the first volume on my monthly bookshelves because there's usually so many volumes, but for Skip and Loafer, I should put all of the most recent ones that I read because it's still in production, just to keep track of my reading. Now to get into my individual journal pages, we cheered. I wouldn't choose favorites, of course, amongst the parts of my digital book journal. I love them all equally, but if I had to choose, I guess, a favorite, yes, it would be my individual journal pages. If you would like to see the process of me like coloring, including pictures in my journal pages, like I said, please skip over to my Instagram or wait until the end for a video that I'm gonna pop in. As a girl who grew up on like Tumblr, Pinterest, WeHeartIt, this literally feels like my bread and butter. It's like my favorite hobby. It just felt right to start off the examples of my journal pages with the book that I feel like is non-negotiably my favorite of the year. I'm making a favorites of 2023 video, which includes like clothes, things I just really loved this year, books, and so I'm not going to gush about this book here because I am going to talk about it there. But in short, what I really love about my journal pages is that they just really feel like little scrapbook reminders of like the book itself. Sometimes I quote unquote like fan cast characters, as you can see here. I'll include important scenes or details from the book that I'm not going to spoil, but yeah. I feel like my digital book journal has just allowed me to combine a lot of my favorite things in one place. My love for books, my love for Pinterest, my love for like journaling and collaging that I feel like I've kind of been out of touch with. I think it's also interesting for me how I can start off with the same kind of orange and tan template that you guys saw at the beginning and come up with something different every time. Different color schemes, different pictures. One of my favorite elements of my journal pages is copying over the font from the cover onto the journal page. And so what I'll do is I'll take the cover and make it a translucent layer and then copy over the layer so I have the exact same font that they have on the cover. My hope is in the future, and not just a hope because I'm going to make it happen, but that in the future I can record more videos on here of me making my journal pages. So if anybody has any questions or you're looking forward to that, please stick around. And as you can see, even though I have a template, I don't really keep everything uniform all the time. I've moved around some of the little bubbles where the dates are, where the author's name is, just to make space for different things. It's all about just having fun with what you're doing. I completely understand trends are trends, but 65% of the time, am I happy with the cartoon cover trend that kind of feels like it's had an uptick in the romance genre? No. This is to say there are definitely some hits for me, and when they are, I more often than not include that cover art on the journal page, crediting the artist. And again, just in the vein of having fun with this and being creative, Sunny Disposition has 2 covers, and I know I wanted the color scheme of this page to be in favor of the original cover, and so that's what you see in the right-hand corner, but I still wanted to include elements of the second cover, and so I took the yellow color scheme from that as well as the cover art. Also, if you're looking at the phone on the journal page and wondering, did she create a fake text conversation between the main characters? Yes I did. Here are a few examples of my Webtoon of the Month pages. If I decide to keep doing the spotlight in 2024, I probably just won't call it Webtoon of the Month anymore. Basically because when I first started my book journal, I found that I was reading a Webtoon every month, and so it seemed like a cool category, but as the year progressed, I just wasn't anymore, or I was reading longer series that were spanning over a month and I wasn't really reading a new one each month. Similar how every monthly bookshelf would be in the same color scheme as the monthly title card that I showed you guys, each Webtoon page would also be in the same color scheme. Then similar to my individual journal pages, I would include some doodles and some pictures to highlight the Webtoon. This is my bookshelf for 2023. These are where I put all the books, mangas, graphic novels that I finished over the year. I looked through a couple of templates that I found online before I decided on this one just because it felt so cozy. It felt like it was like the wall of somebody's apartment. It already had the books read, and I added the in 2023 lettering, and then I also colored in all the furniture like the lamp, the couch. I added the little bubbles for the goldfish. And anytime I finished a book, which basically just means that this bookshelf doesn't include any of my DNFs, I would doodle in a little spine in the bookshelf. I did take some creative liberties with what the spines looked like. I made them look more like the cover designs than the spines actually looked like. Mostly because at first glance, I wanted to just off of like the cover art alone be able to tell like what book it was. I definitely think I'm going to keep this template, and just for the years going forward, I'll probably just like change the colors of the furniture, which will be fun to look back on. I've never really given myself a yearly goal to hit, mostly because I've never recorded a count of the books per year that I've read in the past. But I feel like looking at how many blank spines there are on this bookshelf really tunes me into the fact that like I need to limit my screen time next year. I love social media, but I definitely feel like I spent way too much time on TikTok this year, and next year I just want to limit it and kind of replace that screen time for reading. Wrap-up pages probably isn't the best way to name this category, but I couldn't really think of another moniker. This is my Standout books page. It needs to be updated with a few more reads, but it's basically exactly what its name is, books that stood out to me or I really enjoyed. And some of these that I'm looking at are definitely cheats because I've read these in previous years. Like Foolish Hearts is always quote-unquote I guess gonna be a standout book for me because I read it in high school and it's one of my favorite books. And I love this little chef's kiss meme, and so that's what I built the color scheme of the page around. And I wanted to make this kind of like a gallery, and so I bordered them with art frames. This is my Not Right Now shelf, which is basically a fun way of a TBR shelf, like books I want to keep my eye on. As you can see, Carly Rae Jepsen is saying, "I'm coming back for you, baby, I'm coming back for you," which feels so long ago that song was trending on TikTok, but that's what inspired the color scheme of this page. I am very much a mood reader, so I don't know if I'm bringing a page like this into 2024, but it is really fun to keep just like an eye on all the books that you know you want to read at some point in the future. The check over Heartless is what my intention with this page was, which is that every time I read one of these books, I would put a little check over it, and then I would add like more books I wanted to add to my TBR. I've been reading bits of Heartless on and off, but I haven't gotten very far into it. I want to jump on the Elsie Silver train, and I've heard from most that this is the best book in the series. I've just been struggling to get past the meet cute with this couple, and so if anybody wants to incentivize me to read this or any other book that's on this like TBR list, please make your case in the comments. This is my did not finish DNF shelf. First, all DNFs are not bad books. Sometimes you're just not feeling it, sometimes you're just not vibing, sometimes you put the book down and you don't pick it back up, and so you DNF it. But when I looked at the books that I DNF'd this year, which you can actually see isn't a lot for the most part, I finished the books that I actually picked up this year. So let's not get into the individual critiques I have of these books at this time. The consensus was I DNF'd them because I didn't think they were good. Mostly the writing for me was subjectively the biggest issue. That is where the Tyra Banks quote comes into play because it's the first thing that popped into my mind, and so that's what the color scheme of the page is built around. And I read mostly on my phone, and so the percentages are how far I got into the book before I DNF them.